Good morning for Telesur. I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin in Ukraine, where new developments suggest a peace talks could soon lead to a truce in the country's east. The Ukrainian government announced early Wednesday that it has reached a permanent ceasefire agreement with Russia. Both countries' presidents agreed to take steps to reach a long-term, lasting, peaceful solution to the crisis that has seen over 2,000 lives lost. The breakthrough comes as tensions between Russia and the West have escalated during the past few days. Meanwhile, U.S. President Barack Obama has arrived in Estonia and met with President Hendrik Thomas. The two discussed NATO's actions against Russia. Obama highlighted the possibility of NATO air missions in the area. Thomas called for NATO to increase its military spending. President Obama also announced that he will seek congressional approval to install an air base in Estonia. To Latin America now, where in Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro announces a major government shakeup. For what these changes will mean for Venezuelan politics, we go to our correspondent, Rachel Boothroyd.
We're here reporting from Venezuela, where the country's president, Nicolás Maduro, has just announced a total shake-up of his government in what he has termed a new phase in the Bolivarian revolution. On live television, the Venezuelan president explained that his government's ministries will now be organized around 5 revolutions within the revolution. Within these revolutions, we have the economic revolution, the revolution of knowledge, which Maduro stated will concentrate on science and technology, as well as on creating the new values of socialist society, or the new ethics. The third revolution that Maduro talked about is the revolution of the country's social missions, or the social programs which the government has implemented. The fourth revolution is what Maduro referred to as the political revolution of the state apparatus, which he said is the transformation of the state from a bourgeois model previously under the control of the country's economic elite to a democratic state under the control of ordinary men and women in Venezuela. The final revolution which Maduro talked about is a territorial revolution, or a spatial revolution, which includes housing, as well as advancing a communal form of government where communities actually self-govern. Now, this shake-up of his government also included changes in at least 15 different ministries, and we now have new ministers at the helm of important and strategic ministries, such as the Economy and Finance Ministry, the Petroleum and Mining Ministry, as well as a new Foreign Relations Minister. Maduro also stated over the next few months, between September and October, 7 new presidential popular power commissions will be set up. These popular power commissions include a council of women, a council of the communes, which is communal government in Venezuela, a council of workers, a council of the country's indigenous population, a council of farmers, and a council of the youth, and a council of artists. These councils will all be working in direct relation with the government in order to enact what Nicolás Maduro said, or in order to make sure that the government is subject to the will of the people, or the will of social movements. Obviously, these are important changes in Venezuela, which could signal that an era of change is on its way, and we will do our best to keep you up to date with any further developments. I'm Rachel Boothroyd in Caracas, Venezuela for Telesur.
To Uruguay, where President Jose Mujica has hit back against a New York Times article suggesting he may reverse his decision to house prisoners detained in Guantanamo Bay. Mujica announced in March that his country had agreed to take the prisoners on human rights grounds. He says those plans have not changed. In Colombia, dialogue between the FARC guerrillas and government officials continues. FARC leaders have responded to the government's demand that it disarm, saying that the government must demobilize the paramilitary forces and reform the army as a condition for reaching peace.
Desmovilización y entrega de armas de la guerrilla, tal circunstancia.
If the proposed commando has the mission of studying the demobilization and the disarmament of guerrilla forces, then it should be contrasted with the creation of a commando,
Con la misión de estudiar el regreso de la fuerza militar a su rol constitucional de guarnecer nuestras fronteras,
which could study the ways in which the army could return to its constitutional role of guarding the country's borders and the dismantling of counterinsurgency battalions to normalize conditions after a peace agreement.
Y la implementación de algunas reformas profundas.
Officials have suspended efforts to rescue 7 miners trapped in a Nicaraguan mine. Rescue workers believe all of those trapped have died. 26 people remained inside the mine after a landslide trapped them last week. Most were rescued, but 7 of the workers remain trapped after another landslide halted the rescue operation. The U.S. government has announced it will send 350 more troops to Iraq. The announcement was made by President Barack Obama on Tuesday. The troops will safeguard infrastructure and U.S. personnel in the country. With this announcement, the number of additional U.S. troops sent to Iraq in recent months to fight the Islamic State group has passed 1,000. Meanwhile, Islamic State has released a new video believed to show the beheading of another journalist, the freelance journalist Steve Sotloff. Islamic State claims the action is in response to the U.S. bombing campaign. The scene in the video is the same as a previous video showing the beheading of journalist James Foley. In the video, the group also announces it holds a British journalist.
Despite our serious warnings, you, Obama, have yet again.
British Prime Minister David Cameron announced that authorities will begin an anti-terror operation to seize passports of those it believes are traveling to Iraq or Syria to fight for jihadist groups. Government figures show up to 500 British nationals have traveled to Iraq and Syria in recent months. Previous UK anti-terror laws have been criticized for stigmatizing whole communities.
Clear evidence, not that any more was needed.
And in Yemen, protests against the government continue despite the president's concessions following weeks of demonstrations. The Houthi movement rejected offers made by the president to reinstate fuel subsidies and to form a new cabinet. The Houthis are now calling their supporters to intensify pressure on the president and call for his resignation.
We will stay in the squares until they respond to our 3 demands that were put forward by our leader and for which we took to the streets: bring down fuel prices, overthrow the government, and implement national dialogue.
We end on a cultural note. One of the world's largest collections of pre-Columbus archaeological pieces has been returned to Colombia from Spain. Composed of 691 articles, the collection arrived on Tuesday to the Andean country. The return of the archaeological pieces is part of an ongoing effort by the Ministry of Culture to recover ancient artifacts. The collection brought includes statues, busts, and stone jewelry, which was illegally smuggled out of Colombia. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great day. We'll see you back here midday.